Hey everyone, this is DayTraderRockStar, and tonight you're getting a special surprise. I did a very intense and very great video for members of Day Trading Radio, but there's so much good information on it. I'm splitting it into two videos. I think the important part of the education of what we, what we see each day in the markets and how to put together great trades is the core of what Day Trading Radio is about. So I want to put this out to the public. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to pick this up again. Just to remind you, I'm a host of Day Trading Radio. Day Trading Radio can be found on DayTraderRockStar.com. It's an online, well, I should say it's a show. It's a live show that we cover the markets each and every day, live video, live audio, and it's nonstop, better than CNBC. But if you want to follow the markets, you're into trading, definitely check it out, DayTraderRadio.com, and it costs nothing to watch. But the great education, you're going to enjoy this video. I think it's a really intense video. Really encompasses a lot of what the high probability setups are about. So again, high probability setups, the methodology we use, it's really broken down well in this video. I wanted to put it out to everyone. I hope you enjoyed. Give me any feedback you would like. And visit us here at DayTraderRadio.com, on the air every day from 8:30 a.m. in the morning to 4 o'clock, plus the after-hour shows and news shows and everything else that goes along with it. Enjoy it. Here it is. And this is a great example of what we look at in stocks on every time frame. This happens to be on the daily time frames, but it's just such a perfect example of a trending market flagging out, giving us multiple indicator setups, which we classify as a high probability setup, and seeing the follow through from that, and continue to see that over and over again. Just the pattern continues to repeat. And it's very simple when we talk about the methodology. It's not too many. It's not complicated. It's not any unique or exotic indicator. It's basic indicators, but it's the alignment of those indicators and the understanding of the overall markets. Without going into depth of everything that's going around, and we're just looking at a pure technical view of the markets, it kind of gives us a good risk-reward type of play we're looking for, both on the long side or on the short side. And again, this chart right here shows a great example of all these patterns that we look for, and all these what I call setups, or in the playbook that I look for, is what I attempt to trade on a smaller scale on individual stocks, but it's shown here on the S&P cash. Now it's interesting because we recently had this swoon down. They call it a swoon. They call it the the drop, and a lot of fear came into that market. The VIX ran up. There was a lot of negative talk going around. I mean, I could see it in the chat room. I could see everyone getting very nervous, saying this is it, and that's what happens. That's just the nature of the game. But technically speaking, what we see here, and what I said, well, within 2 weeks we're going to actually push back up and be higher than we were at that point, or at least above 1600, which took basically less than a week. But look at this, we're basically right back at the highs. And the reason I thought this was going to happen so much is basically because of the artificial news that that broke this market down. It was really news that broke a pattern down. When we talk about high probability setups, we talk about really great patterns that play out, and these patterns typically play out over and over again. And when they break down, it's usually because there's something that influences the stock, either earnings, news, guidance, something like that, or something market related. In this case, it was a market swoosh caused by the Fed releasing the FOMC decision and coming out with questions and answers and talking about the tapering of the QE process, and the market got spooked on that and it sold off. But before that, we actually held up pretty good. We came back, we got oversold on the stochastics, we held that trend line, the 50-period moving out, just like we've done, showed a recognizable flag, and we popped out of it. And we popped out and we continued to push higher, and then we had the Fed meeting, it reversed, and we slammed down, and all fear came out. But what happened was we got oversold again. And we got oversold on the daily, and at this point, there was nothing really damaged on the chart other than this one trend line. The 200-period moving average was way underneath us. And there was some other things that I was looking at, underlying support, that we start to look at, like this, the underlying trend lines and stuff. But the main component here was that daily stochastic setup, and then we broke it down on the 60-minute chart. And with the 60-minute chart, you can see we did a lot of work back here when this was all happening. realized that we had dual stochastic setups, and there was this lower trend line right down here, which we came into our buy zone. And I was on with Danny Riley, and we called this level, and pretty much we haven't looked back since that level. So now we look at the chart, and again, we're up here, we're extended on the 60-minute chart. All right, but it's embedded, so it could be taken as a very bullish sign, but also a sign that we tend to lose our edge when we look at stochastics are embedded, because there's no further upside. We take it that embedded stochastics mean continued strength in that direction or weakness in that direction, depending on which way it's embedded. But the timing is a little more difficult to grasp on when it does fail. So the daily now, we go back to the daily and we see that the daily now is getting back into an overbought level too. Now this could easily embed like it did here, and when you get an embedded stochastic, you put 2 to 2 together, probably going to see the same reaction that once this came up to this level right here, you could see when it went embedded, that market really screamed here. So we haven't, it hasn't proved itself to be embedded yet. It hasn't done anything. We can actually turn back over and kind of pull back here now a little, just because of the daily and the 60 setup. But at this level, this is important because this is the key level. This is where we want to be in the trade, and this is where we want to be a little more cautious on the long side. Maybe looking at some shorts at this level. But again, a very strong market, shorts will not, be the best bet. So you have to be very cautious on even taking your short positions, because the market needs to prove itself. It needs to break down. It needs to follow through. It needs to give us some signals that the shorts are going to be in play. Right now, this market's a short crusher, and this could easily push higher. This market could easily push higher, and I think there's a good shot we are going to push higher. So going forward, again, we have a setup where we are showing overbought levels, yet the market seems strong. So is it time for shorts or not? Kind of at a crossroad there. So again, a difficult, even with a watch list, which I tend to work with these patterns that play out in a high probability method, and that's what we're going to focus on today. I'm actually going to give you a good review of what we're going to be looking at, because we've been working on for the last a few months. We've been working on a new system of alerts, and we're really key off on quality stocks and quality names, and specific patterns, which I call the playbook plays. And there are about 7-8 patterns that we look for in the market. And these patterns that I look for happen because of the convergence of indicators. And just because when we have an oversold stochastic or overbought, and we have an underlying trend line, and we have moving averages that line up, and we recognize pivot areas, and we could also identify channels, all those convergences of those things typically give you the same setup over and over again. It's just a matter of waiting for those things to set up, and that's important. That's one of the key things, the focus of today's kind of video is just to remember there's going to be great times to trade, and there's going to be great times not to trade. And I feel like we're at a level that the market still has some great strength in it, but it's going to be a little harder to pick which ones are going to follow through. Because we're not going to see those on the charts as well as we've been seeing them recently. There's still some great setups out there. I want to show them to you, but also going to show you what we've been working on when it comes to these alerts. So what we're doing is we're trying to break down each of these playbook plays, and we them. I want to go through them. I'm going to review them right now, but everything is based off the high probability methodology. And let's just break it down, because I know there's a lot of new members out there that maybe might not be familiar with some of the last videos and some of these setups. So I want to just go through these real fast. All right, right now I have kind of a flow chart, or basically just an outline of how this methodology works. My key go-to indicator is stochastics. I use that in many different ways. We use it on a 1-minute chart, trading the futures. We use it all the way on the 60-minute chart and the daily chart for dual stochastics. But everything, that's really a key level. We have divergences we use off of stochastics, but the stochastics is an underlying indicator. And with that, I add trend lines, and I add what I call as recognizable patterns that I trade. And these are broken down. A trend line, where we talk about how do you define a trend line. Trend lines defined from two pivots, and in this section I break down how do you determine what how a trend makes, or a trend line makes a pattern, and I break down into its own video, playbook video, how to pretty much identify a 1, 2, 3 pattern, which is basically the identification of 2 pivot lines stretching it out to one pivot and taking an opposite extended pivot and drawing that channel line, and then trading 4 and 5. So you have 3 pivots or 3 points on the chart. You trade 4 and 5, and we'll show you some examples of that. Is there a recognizable pattern? Well, that's how we define those patterns, is by those trend lines. Channel wedges and flags are the ones I look for. Sometimes we look at W patterns and inverted head and shoulder patterns, but it really comes down to channels and wedges. Everything really falls into channels. When you break down of a channel, it's usually head and shoulders, but the channel is the first thing you see. Wedges are usually channels that haven't formed properly or haven't broken out, and you get a kind of a downward wedge is a wedge that breaks up, and when that measured move breaks to the upside, it usually goes to the equal distance of that lower trend line, making it a perfect channel, and we go over that all the time. Is there support and resistance? Double bottoms are very important. Defined as previous levels of contact, and that's basically what resistance is. If stock price or whatever you're looking at went to a certain level and then got rejected or bounced off of it, and then comes back to it and does it again, it starts to build a level of resistance or support. And does that area of resistance and support come into play when there is a recognizable pattern, or is there a trend line area there also? So that gets added into. And is there any moving averages that are important? We pay attention to 3 major moving averages: 20, 50, and 200. Very simple. The standard ones, exponential moving averages. All right. And then we talk about some candlestick formations. I added this one on. It's just right over here if you could see it. This is what I call my new indicator. Kind of gives us a little timing. It's called a stochastic candle combination trigger. So when you're trending in one direction or another, 3 or more days, we'll take an example. If the stock is pulling back 3 or more days, you buy the first day, it breaks back above the previous day's high. All right, and you put a stop under the low of the day. And this, again, I add into this. So when this all sets up, normally we'll want to look for that special candle. And candles could be this in the candlestick triggers right here: reverse candles, hammers, piercing patterns, engulfing patterns. Anything that really stands out. There's not many. There's a lot of candlestick formations out there. I like to look at the single and double candlestick formations, just the single outside days, inside days, consolidations. But more importantly, a breakdown or a break higher and then a reversal. And that happens with volume, and if that happens, and again all these are tied together, that really brings out the real important level that we want to get into that position. So all these line up multiple times, and when it does line up, it works. It works. It works more than anything I've ever seen. So we stick to that and we look for those, but it's not always going to pop up on you. It might take time for some of these to set up. And that's the important thing, is to have the patience. So what we're developing is the HPS, what I call the index, the HPS, the set of quality stocks that I trade off of. Those are going to be automatically always automated to, in the system. So when we do identify a high probability setup, which is usually one of the 7 setups, those 7 setups will be mapped out on the index. And if any of those trend lines or any of those setups trigger the stochastics and the trend lines, those alerts will be sent out. So it won't be, you might forget about Coca-Cola or something like that, and one day you'll get an alert and say, Coca-Cola is, is giving you an HPS alert. And look at the chart, and you'll see that it's probably come down to a trend line, or it's at a certain point where you need to take an advantage of it. So that's something we've been working on for a while, and we're trying to get those in the future. That's coming very, very close. That's kind of like the follow-up of the next section of the platform, the dashboard that we've been working on too. So let's talk about some of the setups and the playbook setups. All right. Just to go back and take a look at the S&P chart again. Again, if this was an individual stock, there are certain levels I want to trade this. The flags, the lower bounce on the trend lines, and the oversold stochastic lower trend line bounce. And again, textbook, these are HPS setups all the way. And now we're overbought. We're kind of extended, getting up near a resistance. Is it a possible short? Yes. We're going to see how this plays out. But again, let's just look at some other setups and what we're going to really look for in the future now. All right, this I actually have to make a couple more cheat sheets, but this channel breakout stochastic rotation comes in a series. It's this is a great setup, but also this one could also be counted as a lower trend line bounce stochastic oversold level. So whenever you have that downward channel and you have that 1, 2, 3 pattern, and you get down to the oversold level and you oversold on the bounce, it's just a basic buy right there. It's a combination of the lower channel line, stochastic bounce, and it's just a channel trade. It just gives you a timing factor. You can use the 60 daily setup here. But again, looking at this channel breakout stochastic rotation, after this setup comes this setup, which you're looking at right now. So I'm going to make a cheat sheet for the lower channel bounce. But this one is called the channel breakout stochastic rotation. So this is usually the next play after the bounce like this. So this is what we're trying to always follow in the market. The market's always giving us setups. So we have many different setups to find and kind of scan. I scan the markets for these setups. And when we get them, we're going to put them into the platform, and then they're going to go out. Each time it comes down to this level, you'll be alerted, or each one of these setups, you'll be alerted. So even if it has eventually break out and comes back to that trend line and gives us a trend line rotation trigger, where the stochastics rotate right back down, and that's your first rotation after you've really had a recognizable channel. That first breakout, that's that first rotation of the stochastics come from overbought all the way back to oversold. And that's usually your buy level. When it lines up with a trend line, then you can see the reactionary bounce off of that. And again, these are bounce plays. These are trades. This could be a choppy zone. This is usually a good level to go long for an extended level. But remember, this doesn't mean we're going to go straight up. It means we're usually going to get a reactionary trade. But just like any point, you could be a couple days of chop, and that chop you don't want to get frustrated, because it is a good level, and lots of times you'll get a choppy area before you start to move higher, a choppy area before you get to move higher, a choppy area before you get to move lower. So it gives you an initial bounce. It's just important to always maximize your profit by following the 60-minute chart. This is the daily right now, but then you would rotate on the 60 and let that 60 ride up until it got overbought, and you probably got a good exit right there based on that 60. So this is again the lower channel line stochastic bounce, and this is a channel breakout stochastic rotation. So that's 1 and 2 setups on that. And again, this is the type of setups we're looking for. And again, going back to the markets today and how we're going into next week, we have to wait for these to set up. Sometimes they might not be set up. Right now we're seeing a lot of positives. We're going to go over some stocks, but you're going to see some good setups here. Let's just go on to another cheat sheet and another setup we're going to continue to look for. I just happen to see, sometimes I have all these stocks that are saved on my computer, and I just happen to do a scan for a channel breakout, first pullback stochastic rotation, and this was one of the examples I must have been given. This was Checkpoint Software. You can see the nice channel, the first channel breakout, and this is really the first time the stochastics pulled back, and you can see that bounce from that level. So again, just another example. Let's just look at the next one. And again, I just don't want to miss anything. I just came across another stock, and again, a lot of stocks I have archived here, so I always go back to them. I'm just looking at it, and I, always trade Verizon. We recently just got it back into Verizon, but you can see Verizon here on some of my old notes when we were trading it back in the day. This is a good example right now of a lower trend line bounce stochastic setup, and plus a coil stochastic, which is really good. And again, this is on the 60-minute time frame, which gives you much quicker entries and exits. The daily, you can get this pattern on the daily, you get it on the 60-minute chart. 60-minute chart will give you a much faster trade, so you could see the results much faster than the daily. But again, you can see how this triggered a nice level, lower trend line, recognizable pattern, coil stochastics oversold. Everything pointed to a little pop here. We got a nice pop, oversold, kind of chopped around, but look what happened. We got right back here, oversold, and right from that oversold level, boom, next move up. Got overbought, pulled back, chopped around, slowly grind back down, oversold again, boom, back up. It's just amazing to see, a stock like Verizon give you that setup, and that's why I got into Verizon actually today, because just go back and take a look at Verizon fast, because we did get into Verizon today, and I scaled in small. I wasn't looking at, it wasn't, again, I want to really stress that the beauty of the HPS methodology is to have the patience to let those things come to you. Trying to make something happen in the market will eventually, trading out of boredom, will catch you eventually. We're going to catch you sometimes. sometimes we had some good trades today, but it was it was opportunity. We had some Boeing action. We got the Boeing call. We got the PCP, which was a kind of ping action off of the Boeing. The Verizon, I waited for that 60-minute setup today, and I tried to have some discipline. I said I want to wait. Finally, we got down close to the end. I got in small, understanding that there's an underlying trend line, and believe it or not, this is where I'd actually like it better down here. So a small entry here on Verizon because it is oversold on the 60, and I guess I wanted to do something today. So I forced myself to cut back on some shares and just take a small entry and see what happens. But again, probably the best setup here is just a little underneath us. This will go on the watch list for next week as a high probability setup right down in this level. So you'll get the alert on that. So just might as well go over that right now. We'll look at that area. It's going to be right around that 49.75 area, give or take 20 cents. So I'm going to set that up and put that on the HPS. The 60-minute chart's already set up. The daily is choppy, but the overall flag holding above the 200 period moving average, holding above the 50, it looks pretty good. The daily stochastic's kind of turning over a bit, but there's something about the Verizon. It's kind of a breakout. We'll see if this turns back up. Again, don't want to try to make something happen. I want to see a clear setup. I want to see a great 1-2-3 pattern. I want to see a great stochastic rotation. I don't want to get out Sherlock Holmes and dust for prints and try to guess what this is going to be. I want to see it happen, and that's going to make us money. All right, so that's what I strive to do. I don't want to get impatient in this market, but there will be times when there won't be as many great setups as other times. All right, here's the 1-2-3 pattern. 1-2-3 pattern cheat sheet. Basically, we just talked about how to determine how to make a channel. If you have 3 pivot areas, you trade the 4th and you trade the 5th. Now, this is Cash America, CSH on a 60-minute chart, and just a good example. We see this happen all the time. So once if you actually see that 1-2-3 and actually catch 4. The trade actually becomes much better, for 5 and 6. 5 and 6 is really a really good HPS setup in a quality stock once you get that 1-2-3 pattern, and 4 holds up pretty good. And then you really establish that channel, and that next test, either it's on the lower trend line or a push higher, is usually an excellent entry. So this is another pattern I'm going to search for during our research sessions. All right, just going back to the original HPS, the high probability cheat sheet, which shows you the different patterns that play out during a stock action here, and this is over a series of many months and stuff. But you see these channels, flags within flags, and these each represent their own patterns. A channel within a larger channel, the underlying trend line developed, that follow through trend line. The pivot area is here, making a 1-2-3 pattern. So this level and the moving average all adding up here really good. But really important here, the oversold stochastics, each one of these levels where we bounced was very important. All right, these are all triggered with the oversold stochastics, and the pullbacks triggered with the overbought stochastics. Now it's funny because I put this out a while, and I use TradingView to put these things out. So you could go on there and you actually could follow me there on the DayTraderRockStar. You could follow some of these charts. Most of them just go out to the members, so you don't see any new things. But I did send this one out to the public because it's important. And and what's great about these charts is you could actually push this little button and actually see how this chart continues to play out here. So I haven't done that. I'm just curious to see. I know Xilinx moved higher, but I'm curious to see if some of these trend lines held up here. And there you go. You can actually see we pushed right up against this trend line. We're overbought. We pulled back. I think we probably got oversold. Stochastics stop moving here on the TradingViews chart after you use that little arrow thing. It just doesn't measure the stochastic. It measures the price. It doesn't measure the stochastic. So this pullback here was a nice pullback. Let's just take a look at it on a different chart. XLNX Xilinx. Here's a good example here, 1-2-3 pattern here, and this really represents a couple different things. Here's your lower channel, multiple indicator setup. This is something that you're going to get tonight too. We talked about this a little bit earlier. This is a multi-pattern setup. 1, 2, 3 pattern. You trade 4, 5, 6. You also have the 200 period moving average, the underlying trend line, the flag, and a recognizable pattern on it, oversold. And this also represents, once you establish those things and you establish this as a channel, whenever you break through that channel, you activate the first part of a channel breakout stochastic rotation setup. So at this point in the market, we're actually going to be looking for a lot of these. These are, I think, the next big setups we're going to see, are these type of setups. The market really extended, breaking out of some of these patterns, and we're going to wait for these stochastics to rotate back. And the reason not taking some shorts here is just the market's very strong and we can actually move. I'm starting to take a couple shorts. I took a short in Home Food Mark, and again, very small, just testing the waters because we have, we are kind of extended on this. And if we can zoom out here, you'll see that there is a trend line right above us, which I kind of was eyeballing. And again, sometimes I take a little. There we are. It's right about there. So it started an entry here because we're oversold on the daily and oversold on the 60. Like I said, very bullish stock. Sometimes it's very hard to capture the top on these things. We're not trying to capture a top. Again, market very strong, so shorts are really not what I'm looking at. I'm looking more to stay with the trend behind the wind in our sails and capturing quality names that are giving us an opportunity. But there is some short setups, and because we're breaking out a lot of these channels, the stochastic pullback, the one we were just looking at here, definitely could be the next big setups we see. So again, looking at that setup right here, we had that pullback here, oversold stochastic from that point on, and bounced. We took profits in this one on this gap up. It was a great trade to continue to gap up, and we're pushing right up against that trend line again. So it's amazing to see how that trend line just came right back into play once again, and we're overbought. No position now on that, but it would be good to see how that performs off of this. Alright, in this point of the video, we're going to go back and we're going to take a look at all the recent trades and how they relate to the HPS method. And you'll see these patterns that we're looking for and how they're lining up, and then we're going to discuss some of the new setups. But this is, again, this is GDP, and again, Goodrich Petroleum we identified as a 1, 2, 3 pattern back over here, and we actually took this trade from an oversold stochastic to an overbought stochastic, and I scaled out, and then I held on to 100 shares, and we pulled back, and I felt pretty good on this pullback because we had a stochastic setup here, and from that point on we popped and we ended up taking trade. So we got $1.67 out of this final trade. So that was a good channel. And again, the channel oversold stochastic, staying within the channel. Just cheap stock, not normally something I would pay attention to, but I've been following it, and just happened to catch it at the right time. Probably not going to be trading this one unless it really sets up in another good setup. Alright, here's Caterpillar. How could you not like Caterpillar? Got $3.54 on it, and again, took this right before I went to Oregon, and the reason was, again, very similar pattern. We got oversold, we had a nice downward channel, we're holding off of recent lows, and just looked like a good risk reward. So I only took 50 shares of Caterpillar, but ended up getting $3.50 on it. So it was a nice breakout here. Again, I like Caterpillar. It's a stock that tends to trend good. It gives you good pivot areas. So it's something that we're going to identify in the future and trade off of many times. So we just now start to look at some new levels that are going to play out here. But this one right now was a good trade, and we're just going to continue on. We'll take a look at another one. Here's a Limited Brands LTD, and again, quality name, Limited Brands, very strong stock. It actually had a nice channel here, and the channels just falls into the same thing that we look at. A channel could be upward channel, could be a sideways channel. In this case, we had this. Again, you can see the pivot areas that we're looking with. We definitely have a pivot area here. We have a pivot area here, and we had a recent pivot area here. So we had 1, 2, 3, draw a parallel trend line, and we can see that this level, which represents support level. We can see there's a little gap there. Recent tested that gap. It held. This level really lines up with this level, and this area becomes a very good level and combined with that oversold stochastic really becomes a very good level. So again, beautiful bounce off of that. Took profits on that, and even though this one does look like it's going to continue to move higher, this is the beauty of the HPS is, we try to act like a machine. We don't really have too much human emotion. We don't have a little human influence, in decision-making process, but we really want to, not get too confused between greed and fear. We want to be able to take the signal and take the signal off and just move on, not fall in love, not get even, not do anything that we normally do as traders. So this helps us do that a lot. And Xilinx was key here. Xilinx, excellent setup. Took it off yesterday. It gapped up again today. We just talked about this one as a multiple indicator setup. And again, that recent oversold stochastic pullback, trendline pullback, everything looks great on that. Big pop, and off to the races, back up to the top of the trend line. Possible short, yeah, but this is a strong stock. I like it as a long, so it's hard for me to look at it as short unless it starts to cross over and we start to see some weakness overall in the market. But thank you, Xilinx. Got $1.14 on that. All right, next one, Fortinet. Fortinet, security stock, and typically not looking at it too much, but when I did look at it, stochastics came down. It was even kind of coiled up here. So this was really a nice setup. It broke down previous lows, but we got very close to this lower trend line. Willing to take the position. Only took 50 shares of it because I figured maybe we might get down to this level, but I liked, I feel that the stochastics, once they get oversold, that triggers more often than a test of the trend line. So if the stochastics are oversold and the trend line's not touched, it still has a greater possibility of moving up. It doesn't have to wait for that trend line. A lot of times, and I used to do this all the time, is kind of like, well, I need to have everything lined up. And I realized, stochastics were the main indicator there. When it all lines up here, that's great. But if it doesn't line up, we get very close to it. Small position to start it off. Small position turns into a big profit. $2.56 off of this, just on 50 shares, and a nice big move. And now overbought. So again, your decision is made for you. Cause stochastic, lower trend line, even this larger wedge pattern that plays out. You can even call that a recognizable pattern. So everything looked great on that. Worth the 50 shares. Very low risk, high reward entry. And here we go to Monsanto. Monsanto is the same situation. Right before I left, we had a good HPS setup. We got oversold. We had the trend line underneath that, and what I did was I took the position because I did like the oversold stochastics. We took the position here off the 200, but also set the alert down here just in case people wanted to know about it if it came down to that recognizable pattern. And even at this point right now that this stock is still active, it will be active in the alerts. Because of the new system we're implementing, that once it does come, if it does come back down to that trend line, you'll still get the additional alert on that. So that is still actually active. Let's just take a fast look at that and see how that looks on the HPS setup. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go to, did I have that one on here? Well, which one was that again? Monsanto. I thought I had that one on here. Yeah, maybe I just didn't. I missed it. Hold on. Monsanto right here. It says watching. Click on that. We bring up the chart. You'll see the chart. And this is really the HPS setup here, activated. And we're looking at, again, when I did set it up, we're looking at a buy zone 96 to 94. Take the position as it pulled back under the 200 period moving average. And I took it off. Again, even though it didn't trigger, doesn't mean that it's not a good setup. The stochastics were set up fine. And from that point on, it actually did come down, just about triggered. Didn't hit it by a few pennies and missed it. But we took it right off of that level. And again, you can see the reactionary bounce that it had pulled back into the channel. And this is still going to be active. We're going to adjust this so this trend line alert, so you get those alerts. Let's move on. But again, you're getting an idea of what we're looking at. Consistent quality names, consistent recognizable setups out of the the playbook. The lower channel line, stochastic bounce, the channel breakout, stochastic rotation, any of the 1, 2, 3 pattern setups, wedge pattern setups, and that's really the core of what we're looking at right there. So that's what we're going to continue to look for. Let's take a look at what else. Also took Sony off, and Sony was a little bit different because Sony had just a personal feeling on Sony on the pullback here. Very strong move up here. I love the pullback here. Nice flag, oversold, boom, took profits into it. It was a little pullback here we got into here because I did I did miss this little pullback here. So once it pulled back, it got into it, and then we got a nice little run in it. And it still looks good. I still think that Sony moves higher, but we did take profit on that. It was 100 shares at $1.88. And then Eli Lilly. Let's just take a look at it. LLY. The pullback right to the lower trend line, oversold stochastics. This is where we liked it. All right. Started moving up, starting to get a crossover. Sometimes you could just wait for that crossover to start to see the KD line here start to spread out as long as you have the momentum. People might feel a little bit better instead of trying to capture, that low bounce. But if it's on a trend line, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not just taking a stochastic oversold level. It's very important. It has to have another underlying indicator. It has to have typically 3 of the 5 indicators need to be lining up. So just the stochastics oversold, that's random. All right, but if you have something like a recognizable trend line underneath it, or a 200-period moving average, dual stochastics, candlestick formations, stuff like that, I want to add to it. Gives us a higher probability of the trade. And again, Eli Lilly, $1.83, all out of it. All right, let's see what else we got here. Get rid of this. We also got into MPC, Marathon Petroleum, and took that off today. Great trade. And again, very similar. Lower trend line, stochastic, oversold. Like the action yesterday. Big pop. The refiners, we talked about them yesterday. I love this setup. It's called the 200 breakdown channel bounce, or the underlying trend line bounce. Even though we didn't get through it because the stochastics are oversold, and we recognize that pattern, we know we're in a ball field. It's not an exact science. We want to get near. We know that the deviation, when we talk about deviation, we talk about the distance from, a point. And, when we do pull away from that point, we usually get that reactionary back. So if that pull away, that deviation happens consistently, and we get oversold on that, and we get close to that trend line, but we might not be there, it's definitely worth, or, better entry. This was key right here. So a nice pop. And with that, ended up getting into PSX today, which has a very similar hold in the 200-period moving average. But we did have some positive action on that, and this trade's in the green right now. And it's just, again, another slow position. 1, 2, 3. It'll be on the alerts. Is it on the alerts now? PSX. Let me just double check something. Yeah. Here's the alert on this. And again, even though I did take an early entry off of this, the alerts said watch the 200-period moving average. So this is when we set it up. I put the alert down here. You can see watch the 200-period moving average. That's really what I wanted to see too. And we actually bounced right off that 200-period moving average. That got back down here, but the trend line alert's still set up there. I forgot to talk about Apple here. Apple, man, nailed Apple. Nailed it. Got it down here. Everything was lining up. We had a dual stochastic set up here, daily 60, double bottom, divergence, channels, everything lined up. Really great for Apple. We were able to really nail that. Took 24 points out of it. 24 points out of Apple. And I ended up taking that off in vacation too. When I was out on vacation, I was going to take advantage. It continued to move higher, So 6 points higher so when I got out. But look, daily stochastics getting a little overbought here. Interesting to see what happens at this point. Right now, again, 60-minute chart is probably where you're going to get most of the action. And you can see that recent 60-minute pullback here. Gave us a nice little bounce. We're starting to pull back. We're chopping around. It's just not, it might be something that comes of this, but I would rather have a better signal. And that's, again, talking about waiting for the setup to come to you. Instead of trying to make something happen. All right, let's all right. Here's what I'm kind of embarrassed to look at. Petro Brazil, PBR, and I was studying this when I'm looking at it sideways, standing on my head, looking at it and saying, yeah, give me talk me out of not getting into this one. Well, all I can see is Petrobras here. Definitely a stock that's been non-performing. A lot of issues coming out of Brazil. But then I take a look at this thing and I say, wow, look at this underlying trend line. Goes out 2 years. possible large wedge pattern, recognizable channels all over the yin yang, and we got oversold on the stochastic. So, you know, when was the last time we looked back at this level and seen such a good trend line bounce? Very interesting. Beautiful channel within a channel trade, really representing a couple different pivot areas now. So you have a pivot area here, no doubt defined. Definitely here, no doubt defined. You had a pivot area here. You might even be able to, you know, and I'm putting this one all the way back, so I'm saying that this channel line is more of a wedge pattern. But the fact was here is, this is the key right here. We're oversold. We have this setup. We're off the 20 period moving average. This one could move. You know, there could be some decent upside on this. I would not, if it breaks down out of this trend line, I'm out of it, you know. But I think it's just interesting. Now what happened, look, last night I'm looking at it, I ended up hitting the weekly chart by mistake. It's like, whoa, check out that wedge pattern on a weekly, and look where we are on a weekly stochastics. And look at the last 5, 6, look at every time the weekly stochastics got into an oversold level. I mean, we've had a weekly rally there. I mean, maybe not a significant one. In this case, this was really hard to base because it happened over a series of weeks. But then, generally, when we started, you know, from this level, I always say there's one way, you know, and from this level, there's only one way to go. You know, you either stay embedded, but if you're going to get that momentum and eventually get that move, you're near a level. When these trend lines start to add up, and you get this set up here, I mean, you can see, boom, upward bias, boom, upward bias, oversold, downward bias, boom, downward bias. Uh-oh, look where we are on the trend line, oversold. Does it go embedded? Is this a piece of crap? Does it no, this thing could go, you know, belly up. It can. But I haven't seen a setup like this in a while, so, you know, I did take a couple hundred shares onto this. Just a couple. Just looking at the potential. If it started moving back up against 1340, I'd probably even add to it. All right, so just keep that number in mind. Very interesting. You know, see something, and that lack of quality dog meat stock to be set up on a weekly, daily, 60, you name it, it's set up. Now, did we kill PCP and Boeing today? I mean, I was more impressed with the PCP. The Boeing I thought was pretty good trade. It was gutsy because, you know, you couldn't figure out why that, you know, everyone was pointing to a battery issue on Boeing, and Boeing got hammered. But here's PC Precision Cast Parts, which supplies Boeing with parts and stuff. And that one I thought took a bigger hit. It went from 237 to 223, and it, you know, that was an aggressive move down. So I ended up buying a call on this, and buying a call on Boeing too. And the Boeing I took off. This call I'm still holding, but look at the return on this thing. So, you know, up. Forgetting my platform's closed now, but I think we're up close to $400 on this, and you know, it was just a tremendous trade. And you know, if they any resolution on why that plane was on fire and it's not a Boeing issue, I'd expect Boeing to pop. If there is some kind of issue out there, you know, Boeing might be getting a little tired here. People are getting tired of this this news thing. I mean, how many times you're going to have an opportunity in Boeing? Boeing, the last time it had fired, came back strong. You know, so when it does get hurt, Boeing typically comes back. But is this, you know, the writing on the door? You know, is this an opportunity for all those longs to finally get out? You know, they're like, well, you know what? I don't need this aggravation. I have a nice profit in this. Might see this thing trade under $100 next week. I'm not saying that that's not out of the question. Beautiful bounce off the 50 period moving average. It was textbook. Yeah, baby. I mean, great setup. Picked up the options for 50 cents. 50 cents. And sold it for $1.73. I think that was what or $1.56. Excuse me. Or something like that. Either way, it was great. A triple. Let's go on. So going back in a fast review, this is what we're looking for on HPS setups. Basically, you know, what we're looking for is the combination of the 5 indicators and the stochastics all lining up. And when we get that to the short or to the long side is where we want to take the trade. Now that could be happening on the 60-minute chart, which gives us faster setups, or daily chart, or the combination of any of those. And when they both line up, that really adds to the power to the punch. So the next step, a little research for you, and how these alerts are going to be set up. Alerts are going to be based off what I'm calling the HPS index. And it's the index of stocks that we're really going to put into the system that's going to continue to give us alerts. This is a group of stocks. The number hasn't really been determined. It's always fluctuating because sometimes a stock will get taken out. A stock may come out with some fundamentally bad news or accounting issues. It was once a good stock and now a bad stock, or maybe there's a new stock on the horizon that's been acting good and I want to add it. So it's going to be always an index that's kind of, I want to name it like the HPS 50 or something like that. But we're going to start off with 25 stocks I'm going to go over with you right now, just to give you an outline of the type of stocks we're going to be looking at and the alerts that you'll be seeing from these stocks going forward. When we get everything set up. This is the beginning. So we're going to call this the HPS 25 for now, and these are some of the alerts you're going to be seeing. So let's just go over those stocks. And I'm just going to give you a basic run through of those stocks. All right, we're going to look at the charts together and explain to you what I'm seeing in them and what we're going to be looking for. All right, first stock on the list, first of the HPS 25, Agilent Technologies. First of all, good company. And you can see that we've traded this before. It patterns out well. The stochastics give us always good angles. Just a good-looking stock to trade. Right now, it's a little overbought. Want to really see how it resolves this section. We want to see if it pulls back. We want to see if there's new pivot areas coming in. But eventually, this will pattern out, and we'll be all over it like any of your examples that you want to use. Put in your own phrase there. But a good stock to follow, and I still think it's actually heading higher. But again, watch the 60-minute chart on this. I'll be also alerting you on the 60, and you can see the 60-minute chart's pretty embedded up here, which typically means upside. And you did see that upside. Once we got up here, we kind of chopped around, and different type of embedded. It's almost a coiled embedded stock. Here was a nice wedge pattern breakout. So this stock really, patterns out good, and that's what you want. Quality names that work well. And that's what we have right now. Nothing setting up on it now, but the first of many stocks that you will be seeing alerts from. Second stock, AAP, Advanced Auto Parts. Advanced Auto Parts, again, it's a hefty stock, but a very good stock that gives us good stochastic readings. Currently kind of crossing over. We have a 1, 2, 3 pattern already planned on it. So you'll be seeing this going into the alerts, probably with alerts down on this trend line. For now, the dual stochastic setups, you'll get those alerts. Those are active right now in the test room on the chat room. So when this stochastic daily gets oversold, you'll see the alert. If a 60-minute gets oversold, you get the alert, overbought or oversold. So you'll be able to act on that on the 60-minute chart. And when the daily sets up, you'll get those alerts, and if that trend line gets alert. So the 60 right now is set up, and you probably did see that alert earlier today. But again, we want to have, just because that 60 is set up, we also want to have the other indicators lining up, just like in the regular HPS thing. You want to have usually basically 3 or more indicators lining up. And this one right now, the 60 is set up, but I'm not seeing like a really recognizable channel yet. It could get the bounce, it could not. It's just, it's just not there for me yet. But a good stock and worth being on the list. Apple, AAPL. Got to put Apple on this one. We've traded so many times and we made so much money on it. Gives great 60-minute setups. Absolutely a great 60-minute stock. You can see we've measured this one out multiple times in wedge patterns and 60-minute bounces and channels and stochastic breakdowns, and the first channel breakout stochastic rotation right there. I think that might have been one of the setups I took. And basically the 60-minute chart here crossing back over. So Apple's on it. Let's continue. I want to run through this pretty fast. I don't have all day. AET, Aetna, an insurance company. Right now, very strong. Strong. 60-minute setup here. I like, to get a piece of each sector. I want to be able to have one of the quality names from each sector. Right now, this is very bullish and continues to flag out. Aetna on the list. Berkshire Hathaway, B shares. Believe it or not,
one of the best performing stocks out there, and you know, I think it's a great stock to trade like that because investors, institutions really pay attention to the stock, and if there's an opportunity and it's going to show up on the indicators, and I want to be part of that, so I want to start tracking this one. You know what? I didn't put the SPY down on that. All right. Well, Costco, COST. This is a textbook, beautiful, wide flag, I call it. Any type of flag that holds above that 50-period moving average is usually great. You know, again, similar situation. You have that flag, you have that recognizable channel, which you have that 50-period moving average, and you have the oversold. HPS flag set up. Boom. Here you have the same thing. Oversold, lower trend line, recognizable flag. Boom. Even back here, you know, flag or a little pullback channel. Probably on the 60-minute chart, you'll see that set up. Boom. So it was really a good stock to follow. Again, I actually think this one is going to give us what we call a channel breakout stochastic rotation, and we talked about that earlier as one of the setups. So a lot of these setups you're seeing that are breaking out, if we get a little pullback, you know, want to be alerted to these pullbacks. So these trend, you know, these stochastic indicators and alerts are going to be very important on these stocks, and I'll try to keep you up to date on that. Deere, important to have one of these stocks on here. Deere is always a great stock, even though it hasn't been performing too well. If you look back here and look at the pivot areas, look at the stochastics, it really does work well with the system. So Deere on the Dollar General, DG, same thing. 1, 2, 3 pattern. We're always tracking Dollar General. Very strong. Held that trend line. Remember, it bounced back down here. It came back, hit that trend line again. So just rolled right up. 200-period moving average. A lot of different things playing out there. Again, a lot of these stocks are getting a little short-term overbought, long-term, medium-term overbought. 60-minute chart. You see the bearish flags playing out, drop out. Just getting oversold on the 60. So, and again, gives you a good 60-minute setup too. So Dollar General, always want to be part of that. Dunkin' Donuts, you know I love it. Very strong stock. I want to just take advantage of the opportunities. Expect it to flag, break out, continue to move higher. I want to be on top of that. Fastenal, FAST. It's a good, I call it, indicator stock on the economy. Makes bolts and fasteners, whatever. The underlying trend line, the upward trend line gives us X marks the spot type of trade here where two trend lines converge, oversold stochastics. Let's see what that looks like if we zoom out. Is there really something down here? Yeah, 2 pivot areas. 1, 2. All right, that adds to 3. You know, this one, I think we just put in this trend line because of these 2 pivot areas now, and I'd be concentrating on any alert down on this trend line. With this pivot up here, I'd actually put a parallel trend line up here and concentrate on this pattern overall playing out. I think there's more upside than downside on this right now, but this is what we'd be working with. So identifying the 3 pivots we want to use as a 1, 2, 3 pattern, establishing this in the system with a trend line alert here, trend line alert here, and trend line alert there. The convergence of trend lines, if they ever come together again, will be really important to be on top of. Fastenal, FAST. Halliburton, oil service sector. This is a great stock, you know, easy to trade. Just wait for the opportunity. Right now it's a little overbought. I smell stochastic rotation on this one. You know, just want to follow it, want to have it in the system. Again, this is going over the HPS 25 right now. The first 25 stocks, you're going to see really detailed alerts coming out on the next addition to the platform and dashboard / dashboard. We're talking about calling it platform. RPM says it sounds more industrial, and I said, yeah, you're right. You know, dashboard, platform. Platform sounds good. We might actually just start calling it the platform. Hess, beautiful daily breakout, lower trend. You know, the drop out here. A lot of these stocks here dropped out on the Bernanke talk. So remember, we talk about a stock that holds up pretty much until there's some outside influence in the market, and that channel breaks down. We come right down to this pivot area here, straight line. Look where it touches, exactly on that pivot area. We have a pivot area here. Look at where we stopped out here. Or we didn't stop out, but where it stopped basically. The next day it gapped up. Yeah, it broke out. That happens. That's great. But basically, wow, trend line holds right there. A breakdown under the 200 period moving average, which is an HPS setup, and I would take that every day. Take that trade every day. Hess on the JBHT. Trucking stock. JBHT. Transportation. Again, another stock that you can see clearly gives us great opportunities on the daily and the 60-minute. Great patterns, flags out, quality name, JBHT. You know it. You know it. LTD. We went over that. We took that trade. Recently took that trade. We have great channels on it. Great stochastic angles. This one has great. Look at that. Look at these levels. Boom, boom. What are these levels all lining up with? Boom, boom. My great handwriting. Wedge pattern breakout in the 65 to 75% zone. That's a video on the forum too. Up here, channeling out. Boom, 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 boom. Upward trend line. New channel develop. This one will be, we have this one in the system. LTD. It's already in the system. Right? If I'm not mistaken. There I am. It's got to get in there. Got to get in there tonight. But with this new channel, recognizable channel 1, 2, 3 pattern, upper trend line would be the target up here. Lower trend line bounce if we pulled back. Always want to take with the stochastics. We'll wait for it. But we just took it off. So great trade off of this level. That's the important part. No recognizing when to be in, recognizing when to be out. LTD. We're going to go through them fast. McDonald's and Mickey D's. Again, same thing. Call stochastic, lower trend line. We traded this last month or two off of this pullback off the 200. There was a couple different levels we were looking at. Coil stochastic was the main thing. Bounced up aggressively, pulled back, bounced, continues to break out of this flag. It looks good. Mickey D's. Philip Morris. Smoking stocks. They perform very well. They pattern out nicely. Here's a 1, 2, 3 pattern. If we pull back here, we'll have a textbook 1, 2, 3 pattern with a pivot area here, pivot area here. We haven't really pulled back yet. Again, I really want to see that confirmation. At least get us back down here before we start concentrating on that breakdown of the 200 period moving average trend line bounce. All right, so that's a possibility. This is down the road. Remember, we're talking daily here. So this could be down here in September even. But these are the trades that are going to be like ATM machines to us. We're going to get down to this level. Unless there's some outside influence, the chances of us getting a very good bounce off of that level is going to be fantastic. And I think, we just want to be part of that. Monsanto, MON, ag stock. Very similar patterns. Boom, 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 boom. Very simple. Recognizing what stocks you want to have in your focus list is really important. MPC. Refiner. We talked about it already. Classic setup of an HPS setup. Classic. Already working out. Already traded it. But again, the alert is set here in the system for a lower trend line bounce. PKG. Packaging. This one's already strong. This is what we call a very strong stock. And I've been working on so many different projects. One of the projects was Chart Bounty. And it was where members would, I don't know if I've talked about this yet, and I don't want to waste your time. This video is long enough as it is, but where members of Day Trading Radio would submit stocks that fell into the criteria of an HPS setup that really, and in some cases I might put a bounty out for stocks that are holding the 20 period moving average or oversold. Now I have a scan that tells me how to find these, but these in this market have been super strong. And there's another, when you see a setup like this on a quality stock like this and it's holding that 20 period moving average and you're getting oversold or getting close to oversold, pay attention to it because it's going to rip. All right. So that chart bounty, I kind of put that out there. If someone gives me something I like and I'm really giving you a lot of credit for and I take a trade on it, you should deserve to get a little PayPal bonus from me. But, that site's in the process of being built and, hopefully we get something on that. But again, I always put out chart bounty for stocks like this. I'll give you some examples of them, These are strong stocks, and if you could find it, the stochastics get oversold and we hold around that 50 period moving average, we are good to go usually. Good to go. So here's some examples. All right, Cigna. You see how we pulled back, oversold here, held that 50-period moving average. Look at that move out of that. CI. MasterCard. MA. Look at that. Oversold, held that 50-period moving average. Boom. Great stock. You know, this stock, Visa. Same thing. Didn't get quite oversold, but we were starting to pull back. We held way above the 50s. This continues. These stocks you can just get into these stocks and call it a day. Google, why not? Perfect setup. This was the last great setup here on Google. That nice pullback, banging the table on that one hard. Oversold on the daily, the 50-period moving average, the flag there, everything. I mean, I know a lot of the traders, a lot of women traders trading Google took major money off of this one, and this one's breaking out right now. Talking about strong stocks, GIS. This one's kind of holding that 20-period moving average. Just came back above the 20. Not really qualifies. Again, I'm just going through my mind which ones I remember it. But you get the idea, Find me a strong stock, and we'll go from there. MPC, packaging. Philip Morris, another smoking stock, PM. These tend to really pattern out well, so I put both of them on. This is the beginning of a coiled stochastic setup here. So coiled stochastic setups in channels. If this happens to pull back down to this level, and this happens to pull back down and kind of zoom in here, man, you want to be part of that, right? When it comes around. TGT, Target. Very strong stock. Oversold, held around that 50-period moving average. Good example of that, TGT. Even oversold. It was just perfect. Very strong stocks. Send them to me, people. We spread the wealth. We spread the wealth. Visa, we just talked about it. It's on again. So Target and Visa are on the HPS setups, or on the HPS index, the 25. Xilinx, XLNX, you know that one. We went over that one already. Great pattern stock, so put it on there. And there's going to be some other ones which brings us past that 25, but the additional ones I would like to get on there is Clorox CLX, which is, this was a video I sent out during the vacation saying this is a textbook flag. I like this one. Probably going into next week is one of the best bets. This is a breakout setup, and we're looking at really not a pullback play, but a continuation of fire up here. The stochastics are overbought. Yes, I know that. That's a tough angle right there. But again, just like they're overbought here, look at the move from here to here. I mean, that could easily happen again. And it's a beautiful flag here. This is where I would love to be in. That can't be, So it's to make a decision on Clorox. I love it here. I think we're going higher. And Crafts, KRFT. Similar situation after the spin-off. Nice flag here. Nice flag, starting to break out. I would say easy shot to recent highs. Stochastics look good. So Kraft, going to be on that watch, that index also. And I think I want to get PSX on it and MasterCard on it and the SPY, which is really going to be important. Because the SPY, SPY, that's the key here, because the SPY tracks the S&P. So we're basically going to get the same pattern we're seeing in the markets on the SPY, yet we're going to get the alerts. So we're basically getting the alerts on the S&P 500. So that's a great little trick there I'm going to use. Again, you can see the underlying trend line where we've really knew that this was a great level to be in the market, after the Bernanke. So not afraid of the market here. Expect it to go back up right off this level. Why? Look at these pivot areas. This trend line right here. Came right down to it. We're oversold. Everything lined up. And boom, off to the races. All right, breakout, pushing back up to the highs, and business as usual for the market. But what's the next move? Do we get that rotation back? Do we get a little pullback? Do we get a stochastic rotation? Do we start a new channel eventually? Who knows? But that's where we want to, we're going to decipher that as it happens, and when we start to get those signals, we'll be on top of it. So that kind of rounds up the HPS index that we're going to be following, and you're going to see detail alerts on trend lines and stuff going forward. I did mention some stocks here. Like I said, I'm kind of not bringing any new stocks to the table. I'm going to add these to the thing. We have the
the current watch list, that's a lot of them are still active because the market actually broke up and then pulled back. Some of those will be adjusted, and I think, you know, going into next week, Clorox here, one of the best bets. CLX, just so I don't forget. Let me make sure you got that. Clorox, and let me just put this on pause and come back just a second. I just remembered I had a couple more notes here. Cabela's also going to be on the, even though it's not in the HPS. Again, let me clarify something. Even though something might not be in the HPS 25 or index, I will still be adding stocks to the HPS, you know, alerts, the normal alerts where you get the alerts in the room. So this one is a great setup for next week. You can see stochastics haven't gotten as extended as in most of the stocks. We still have some ways to go to get up here, and that's usually very bullish. Another good thing is we had the underlying 1-2-3 pattern, and we just recently came off of a what we call a convergence of the trend lines, or X marks the spot type of trade, and a nice recognizable pattern. Not that far off of recent highs. Cabela's, I love this company. So, you know, I think we can make a run to 72. I think this is a great setup for next week. Great setup for next week. So we'll go on the, well, I'm going to put it on the watch list anyway. So let me get that written out. It's CAB. So let me just touch base with that one. Again, too many notes. I have to show you this other one, Broadcom. 1-2-3 pattern. Just off that lower trend line. Again, we're in a situation where we're getting a little oversold here, but this Broadcom has been basing out a long time, and you know, we have a nice base here, and we could be starting something here. You know, I love that we just bounced off this trend line, that we have these pivots now in place, and we really have an established 1-2-3 pattern. So, you know, the trade is going to come active here if it comes back. I think we're moving back up into this channel a lot, and very possibly trying to get back up to the top part of this channel up here. Now, over time, we look at this stock has been in this range for a long time, so I would say we're pretty much close to the bottom here. Let's take a look at the weekly. Weekly is also looking good. Weekly just starting to cross back over, even though you know, it could fail, but that doesn't usually happen. The weekly gives us pretty good setups. So we got a nice crossover in the weekly. This could lead to something bigger, and holding that 200 period moving average on the weekly too. So, you know, Broadcom also looking good, but going back to that daily, pretty chart, huh? You know, this is what we like to, that's what I like to give you, is a 1-2-3 pattern, and right at the inception, you know, when the egg cracks. I want to see that little chicken start to come out, and this is my little chicken hatching. So we're getting this one young. I think there's some, you know, we're going to concentrate on this one too, so put that one. So right now, Clorox, Cabela's, Broadcom, BRCM, Kraft. So Kraft, Clorox, Cabela's, Broadcom. I know there was another one I was looking at. All right, it's approaching 10 o'clock. I need to get something to eat. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to just leave you with a note, and then we're going to come back and do a second part of this video added to it. You won't know the difference, but you know, the first part of the video, very educational. I think it was very important, so I actually might split these two videos up, because the next section of this video is going to be the setups for this week and a breakdown of some of the buy triggers and stuff. So I want to separate those. That way you don't have to go, if you don't want to go through the big part of this video. I think this is a great video, though. I think it really breaks down the HPS setup. And if you're listening to this part of it, you listen to the whole thing, and I can't tell you not to listen to it, because you already listened to it, and I'm not going to tell you that. Doesn't make sense, but I'm starving. It's almost 10:30, and I got to get something to eat. So we're going to just, I want to cut this video off here. We're going to come back with an HPS watch list video, a couple stocks on it, and the best bet of the week. I already told you. But for those out there maybe seeing this video for the first time, I throw it out there to the world. Great things developing here at Day Trading Radio. You know, I'm excited. I'm excited to be back from the vacation. We're on the air every day from 8:30 to 4 o'clock, and then we have after-hour shows and all kinds of good stuff going. But it's a live video, you know, TV, radio show on DayTradingRadio.com, and you'll see us take these trades and make some good moolah, and hopefully you make that moolah too, as we walk you through the markets with great entertainment, music, and mostly breaking news. Mr. Land, big shout out to Mr. Land. He was on fire today. You know, our partners with Benzinger, Traders Audio, Mr. Topstep, our affiliations with Tick Strike. I mean, all these things on our new platform. You got to come over and check it out. All right. Have a good one. The next video going out, or the attached video to this, for those members out there, you'll get the, this won't end. You'll just hear me come back, but with the setups for this week. All right. DayTradingRadio.com.